People fight, yell, point fingers. There's all kinds of disagreement going on in the world today, and disagreement brings, I'll tell you, and the answer may surprise you. Welcome to Podcast at the Lab. I'm Scott Fairchild, and you're with Podcast at the Lab. I want to welcome you back. This is a place that connects faith in the marketplace. It really is a church without limits. I'm glad you're here. Hey, if you haven't hit the subscribe button, make sure you go ahead and do that. And there's a button over there also next to it that's a bell button. Go ahead and click on that. And so then you'll be notified when we have new videos that come out. Anyway, I'm glad you're here. You know, we see all these things that are going on right now in the world. It's like all these disagreements. People are yelling at each other. People are disagreeing. I mean, just it's awful is what's going on. Now, I want to put a different slant on this because I really believe that disagreement can do something very powerful. It brings innovation and it brings growth. I want to read for you a quote. It says, this is a guy named Clarke. He said this. He said, "We find comfort among those we agree with, growth among those we don't." And of course, if you're familiar with the Bible scripture that says Proverbs 27, it's in Proverbs 27, it says, "As iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another." You know, one of the things that I liked about leadership and really as being a pastor is like I brought in, when I had to have staff people, I had staff people that really would disagree with one another. And I got to tell you, I kind of liked it. I mean, sometimes it was kind of fun just to see them disagree. I probably is not very Christian, but I did. But it wasn't just for the sake of disagreement. I understood that something very powerful came out of their disagreement. And even the times when they would just begin to really argue with one another. Out of that came some of our best and most powerful ideas, some of the things that we innovated and we did in order to bring growth, not only to ourselves, but really to the church. I'm all about innovation and growth. It's like, I hate the status quo. You know that. It's like, I don't want to do the same old thing. And you know, people tend to get into a position where they just want, it's like, well, we just want to coast. We just want to slide along. And it's like, you know, but there's no growth in that. And there's no improvement personally as well as professionally. So anyway, we would have that, and there was several people that were on staff, and they would clash, and there was one in particular that would clash a lot, and I used to get the biggest kick out of her because she would irritate people, and she would irritate me too. It's like, I mean, we would have these arguments, and we would argue, but here's the amazing thing about this: we could argue with one another, but at the end of the day, I knew she was with me no matter what. She was a family friend. She was fiercely loyal to our family and really to the mission that we had. And so when you look at something like that, you have to realize, like you and I, it's like what we want to do is we want to gather people around us that make us feel comfortable. And yet really what we need to do is also gather around us those people that will tell us the truth that we need to hear. Because the truth, remember, always sets us free. I think about that with Jesus, and you know, Jesus irritated people. I know people think, "Oh, Jesus was just so nice." It's like Jesus was not always nice. He loved people. Don't get me wrong. He really, truly loved people. For God so loved the world, so he loved people. But he loved people enough to tell them what they needed to hear, not always what they wanted to hear. I mean, there were several times when he rebuked him. In fact, the one time that we're really familiar with is the time when he told Peter, he said, "Get behind me, Satan." It's like, I don't know about you, but that's not exactly a nice, sweet thing to say. I mean, it was harsh, but it was exactly what Peter needed. I want you to look at, it's in Luke chapter 9. I want to show you these two guys, John and James and John. Okay, they're the sons of thunder is what they're called. I mean, these guys, I really think they were called the sons of thunder because they loved a good fight. And so in Luke chapter 9, I'm just going to walk you through some of the things that are going on in Luke chapter 9. These guys had victory after victory all through Luke chapter 9. They started out, they were sent out. Jesus said, I want you to go out, I want you to preach, teach, heal, and people got healed, people got set free, some amazing things happened. Then they gathered back together, and when they gathered back together, they had to feed 5,000 people, and Jesus said, okay, you guys are going to feed them, and so they ended up doing that, so they feed 5,000 people. So these guys got to be feeling pretty good about themselves. Then he goes on, and Jesus said, hey, who do people say that I am? And of course, we know the story. Peter's the one that said, hey, you're the Messiah. And so, again, it's like you're kind of building up. It's like, man, I'm hanging out with the Messiah. I'm hanging out with the King of Kings himself. So they're feeling real good about themselves. So they get to a place, and there's another, again, we're still in Luke 9. There's this story where this dad comes up, and he says, hey, I need you to heal my son. He's not, I asked the disciples to do it, and nothing happened. These are my paraphrase, but that's what it is. Nothing happened. And so Jesus looked at him. It's like, again, he was pretty harsh at this point. Let's put it that way. He rebuked him. He said, you look there, he said, you perverse generation. It's like, wow, perverse generation. So that's what he said to his disciples. He went ahead and healed this boy. Then you get to another story. I'm going to lead to this one point that I want you to see. It leads to another story. So then Peter, James, and John, they're all with Jesus, and they're all up on this mountain, and they see Jesus transfigured. They see Elijah and Moses. They see these guys transfigured. I mean, only 3 guys got to see this. So again, we're back to, all right, yeah, Jesus, he may have rebuked us, but man, I'm feeling really good about myself right now. It's like, yeah, look at me. So then they get back, and they're fighting over who's supposed to be the greatest. And again, Jesus rebuked them again. So then you get to this point where they're walking through this town, and this town rejects them. It's in Luke 9, it's verse 52. And so Jesus, and it says this, and he sent messengers on ahead who went into a Samaritan village to get things ready for him. But the people that were there did not welcome him, because he was heading for Jerusalem. And here it is. When the disciples, named James and John, remember the sons of thunder, saw this, they said, Lord, do you want us to call down fire from heaven to destroy them? Now remember, they had just earlier seen Elijah, and what did Elijah do in the Old Testament? He called down fire from heaven. So these guys are going, hey, I just saw Elijah. I think I can do this. And Jesus turned, the scripture says, verse 55, it says, but Jesus turned and he rebuked them. Now, I want to talk a little bit about disagreement, but I want to tie into that this really interesting word called self-righteousness. Now, I know you look at it, it's like, yeah, these Christians, they're so self-righteous. I got news for you. There's a lot of people that are self-righteous that I watch. I mean, I look at this social media stuff. There's a lot of people on there that are pretty self-righteous, and they ain't Christian. So when I say that, self-righteousness is not just Christians. It's a lot of people that what happens is they get so puffed up in who they are and their self-importance and what they think, and so they become self-righteous, and they don't want to hear what anybody else says. They don't want to hear anything that opposes what they believe or what they think might be true. Now, I look at that, and I think, this is what's going on. It's like we really have become a nation where, I mean, there's a lot of things going on, but one of the things is that we've all become kind of this self-righteous. We're going to just yell and scream at each other because we're right. And you know what's going on here? It's a lot of fear. And when I say that, I want you to recognize it. Just stop for a minute. It's like when people begin to question what you believe, when they begin to question, you say, well, this is the way it is, and they begin to question you, and what do? You right away, you want to throw up this roadblock, or you want to throw up this, I'm going to have to defend myself. And a lot of times it really is out of fear. Fear of, man, what if I'm wrong? Or fear of other things. Fear of position. You're afraid you're going to lose your position. You're going to lose control. There's a lot of things that go on there. What you and I have got to move to is a position of love. Let me go back to the people that were on my staff, and the one person I specifically was talking about. I knew that person loved me. And so no matter how much we would argue or yell, no matter how much we disagreed, we knew at the end of the day that we were going to stand shoulder to shoulder. I got a good friend of mine that's, he gave me this cup. It's like he's another one of those guys. It's like, we've disagreed. There's been times when we disagreed, not often, but we've disagreed. But I never have to question where he is because I know he's my friend. I know that he loves me, and I know through thick and thin he's going to stand next to me. I'm grateful for a family that does the same thing. It's like no matter how much we disagree with one another, I know at the end of the day, it's like we're going to stand together. We're going to stand shoulder to shoulder. And we need those kind of things. So I want to give you this scripture. It's in Romans chapter 12, and it really illustrates what I'm talking about. Romans chapter 12, it's verse 9. It says, love must be sincere, hate what is evil, and cling, or actually it almost means to be glued to what is good. Be devoted to one another, honor one another above yourselves. I want to give you three things just as I close. The first thing is that we got to find those people that are going to love us unconditionally. They're going to love us enough to tell us what we need to hear, not necessarily what we want to hear. We keep gathering around us people that say the same things that we do, so we can all agree together. It's like, again, social media. I'm going to find all those people that think the same way I do, so we can all click likes on each other, and we can go, yeah, and yet there's no real growth in that. What we need are the people, sometimes they'll agree with us, but sometimes they're willing to disagree with us, because the most important thing is that we know that they love us. Jesus loved his disciples. And remember this, like someday I'm going to talk to you more about this. It's like this was an incredibly diverse group of guys. There is no way that those guys would have been in the same room together apart from Jesus Christ. Because he knew that he loved them, and he loved them, I think, enough to tell them the truth, obviously, because he rebuked them. They knew that he loved them. Okay? And so then out of that grew a love for one another. So that's the second thing. It's like value others, even the people that disagree with you. The Bible is very clear. It's like we're all made in the image of God. It's like, and I got to tell you, sometimes I have a hard time. We all do. It's like when the people that disagree with us, and some of these people are just vehement, just nasty the way they disagree with us. And I look at this, man, Jesus, it's really hard to like them, let alone love them. And yet that's the call that each one of us have. And how are they going to learn the truth apart from us learning to love them? How do we do that? The first thing is that we have to value who they are. They're all made in the image of God. Whether we agree or disagree with them, they're all made in the image of God. So, first thing, find the people that will love you unconditionally and will tell you the truth. The second thing is that we have to value others. Value others enough, even those that we disagree with. Third thing I want to give to you is humility. Is humility. We might not be right. And when I say that, there's going to be a few things that I'm not going to waver on. I am not wavering on the fact that I really, truly believe that Jesus Christ is the way, the truth, and the life, and no one comes to the Father but by him. So I'm not going to waver on that. But there's some other things that I recognize, like really what I'm after is truth. I'm after innovation. I'm after growth. And if I'm wrong, I want to know that. Again, I go back to the staff that I used to have and the staff that as I gather people around me, it's like, I want them to disagree with me, because out of that will come a compromise, or out of that will come innovation and will come growth. A little sidelight to that, I don't know how many of you know, the Declaration of Independence was not just like three guys in the room and said, yep, we actually absolutely agree. It was three guys that finally just scratched their head and said, look, this is the best we can do. We're going to go with it. It was a compromise. And yet out of this compromise came one of the most amazing things ever written. So innovation and growth really is going to come in the process of disagreement. So remember I said disagreement brings, you know what disagreement brings? It brings growth. It brings innovation. And it shows love. This is Scott Fairchild, Podcast at the Lab. I'll see you next time.